Here's one that's easy, and it's very elaborate. This is a stick. You see a twig. Isn't he beautiful? Show you how it's done. So easy and so much fun to play with classic French dough. Take, that's 2 loaves, so take half the batch of dough and roll it into a, give me some room here. Roll it into a long snake. Don't handle French dough tenderly, for heaven's sakes. There's no reason to. It can take it. I promise. Well, that's too much dough. I think you need about 1/3 of the whole batch here. There we go. Try and keep your sleeves out of the dough. It isn't necessary to put your sleeves in here. Okay, now, you see what I've got? I'm going to take a pair of scissors now, and I'm simply going to make a few cuts here. One, and another one down this side, and down this side, and down this side. You better do this on the tray, because you'll never be able to transfer this rascal if you don't. Then you just pull them over on the opposite sides, you see? And you get this kind of leafy twig effect. Isn't that fun? There's supposed to be a cut there somewhere. Where did it go? This dough is so glutinous, you see that it sticks to itself right away. There we go. Let this rise, and you can glaze it or you can flour it. I floured mine. I really prefer the flouring. Now then, my biggie. This is my biggie. Here's my finale. You ready? At least for the French dough. In southern France, they decorate a loaf, and yes, I did make this one. They decorate a loaf with the grapes of the church. You see, bread and wine. The church lives on bread and wine. And you do this simply by rolling out little bitty snakes of dough and making your vine and rolling little bitty balls to make the grapes. And the leaves are cut by pressing the dough flat on the board and then cutting them out with a razor blade and pressing them on the loaf. Don't flour the loaf until after you're done. Let it rise, and you've got a heavenly thing. I was very highly complimented when I was baking like mad. I did all of this late yesterday afternoon and last night before you came, you see. And my friend, who's also my producer, came running in and looked at my loaves sitting on the rack there, and he said, "Oh, those are gorgeous. Where'd you buy them?" I was really insulted. Also complimented. You can do this if you'll just take some time. One, be sure and let the dough turn to gluten. That's how you're going to get a good crust. And two, don't hustle the process. It's great fun. It'll take some time. You know, it takes half the day to do this. But at the end of the day, when you come to the table with great rolls or big loaves of fancy bread, you know, you can write people's names on the loaf for a holiday, you see, for a birthday or something. Or you can do fancy decorations. You can even outline your house on one of these things. Anything for kicks. And bring it to the table, and everyone will be marvelously happy. You'll have a good time, I promise. There it is. We ought to talk about the history of bread in the church. You know that bread biblically, the staff of life and all, is terribly important. It's to the point in biblical times, we ate so much bread that bread was a sign of life. The line, "Give us this day our daily bread," has nothing to do with just bread, but it was the whole, everything you ate, you see. And bread was the most common thing in your whole diet. Bread it was. And during the 1700s in England, let me show you this article. I have a marvelous book for you. Bread was terribly important in desperate times. That's what we lived on. Here's an article published in England in 1758. This is a reproduction, of course. It's by Dr. H. Jackson, a chemist, and it's an essay in which he discusses the methods of testing bread to find out whether or not the baker has loaded it with lime, chalk, whiting, or burnt bones. Can you imagine what went on in those times to common bread, which was terribly important to us? Bread is still important to us. And we've forgotten all about it. Because you and I live on those little puffy collapsible rolls. You know, you breathe on the thing and it dies off. There's no body to it. This bread has body. You know what the term companion means? It's Latin for the word come with bread, panna. It means the person with whom I break my bread. That's a companion. And that's what you and I should be cooking. Now, let me show you a more flamboyant loaf. And this one is from Italy, and it's called focaccia bread. It's just gorgeous. Oh, I know where it is. Let me get started with a clean bowl here. Oh, this is going to be murder to clean off my paddle. Maybe I'm not going to start with a clean bowl. Oh well, in go the hands, gang. Let's face it. No other way to do this. For this loaf, I want you to prepare 1 cup of water, and we're going to use 3 cups of flour. And it's not so important to weigh this one out because we're not worrying about a crust. This is kind of it's almost a pizza bread. I think I'm stuck to this. Remember the old Laurel and Hardy routine? They couldn't get rid of something. They kept going back and forth with it. I think that's what we're going to have here. All right. I have some extra bowls for my for my mixer. It works very well. Now, we're going to add to our bowl 1 cup of water. And then we want 1 package of yeast. Nothing to it. 1 package of yeast is about that much. Alrighty, we'll let that soak for about 5 minutes and then blend into it 3 cups of flour. And let me show you the other liquids we want to put in this. In addition to this, we want to add 1/4 of a cup. It's very rich stuff of olive oil. So pour it right into the flour before we get started here. 1/4 of a cup of olive oil. Focaccia is very rich. Then we want a teaspoon of sugar and a teaspoon of salt. 1 and 1. You get the idea that we're making something rich, huh? There's the sugar. I always keep a little sugar in the counter in a small bottle like this, you see, so that I can measure in a hurry in my hands. There it goes. All right. Now then, let's add the flour. We need 3 cups. You can do this with a regular Mixmaster for the first cup or so to blend in the oil and the goodies, you see. Otherwise, you're going to have trouble. Have you got the recipe now? 3 cups of flour, blended into 1 cup of water and 2 cakes of yeast, 1/4 of a cup of olive oil, a teaspoon of sugar, and a teaspoon of salt. Now you see, this is really going to take a lot of work. You see what's happening? See how tough it is already? And I've got a whole cup of flour to go. Well, I'll show you what you get, because I want you to see the whole process here. It's just a delicious dish. See if I can find it. Which bowl is it under? Aha! I have him. Focaccia. There he is. Now, I want to move over there, will you? Another loaf coming up here. What you do is to press this out. Let it rise first, you see. Let it rise once. And then we're going to press it out into a big pizza affair. But I want it rectangular because I want to cook this in a pan. I don't want to, there it is. I don't want to cook it on a tray. This is going to be a very thick loaf, much thicker than a pizza. I've got a beautiful marble rolling pin here. I just love to use it. It just weighs a ton. One of my friends that helps me in the morning picked this thing up this morning, and she said, "Oh, my God." Well, maybe a little heavy, but you don't have to work so hard. Now, that's about the size I want, huh? That should fit my pan. All right. Now, remember, this has already been raised once. Then you punch it down, spread it out. Let me get a pan here for us. And in a very oily pan, what did I do with the olive oil? Here it is. Lots of olive oil in this one. You oil it up. Isn't this a kick? Now I'm going to put it right in here. There we go. Come to me. And just push it around until you get what you want. Now let that rise until it's not quite double in bulk. Let's get that wrinkle out of the way here. There we go. Let that rise until it's not quite double in bulk. And then you take after it with a fork. You really give it the works. And thusly. Okay. Now, we're ready to go with some garlic. Where did I put my garlic press? Here he is. Garlic on bread? Of course. We're making an Italian bread. Put some garlic on this. 1 clove will be fine. And I want to add some pepper, too. There we go. We'll just rub this in with our fingers. Pepper. Garlic. There we go. Just rub the old garlic all around. You don't have to have perfect shape on this, but it's easier if you can just keep banging it around as it rises. Remember now, this has risen once, and then I punched it down with a fork. Got that? Then I've added the garlic and the pepper. Now I'm going to brush it with a very rich paste, tomato paste, of course. Okay. And then we'll top this off with some oregano and some chopped green onions. And we come up with an onion bread from the south, the southern part of Italy. You know, tomatoes weren't common in the north. Did you know that? That's not common in Italian cooking at all. Just in the south. Okay, who's got the onions? Here they are. There we go. And a shot of oregano. And we're going to bake this in a 375-degree oven for about 25 minutes. And you come up with something that's just heavenly. The kids will go berserk, just berserk. There we go. Enjoy. You want to see what you wind up with? Here it is, focaccia from Italy. You see? Isn't that a lovely thing? It's thick enough so that, let me transfer it to the board and I'll show you how it's cut. And then we want to review proper baking methods, because I haven't told you how to steam your French bread, and that's the only way you're going to get a crust. And I'll show you how to do it quickly and easily. But I want you to get a view of this beautiful focaccia. It's just a lovely bread. Okay? You cut it into big squares like this. There we go. And then again, something like so. You know who I'm making this for? You thought it was for you. This is not for you. This is for my son Jason, whom we affectionately call Starch Mouth in our house. He's much older now, but from the time he was a baby, Jason ate starch above anything else. Now you see, you cut this in the middle. And this is how they do it. In San Francisco, there's a joint called the La Cantina on Union Street, and he makes a sandwich out of this beautiful bread. And he puts salami on this and a little lettuce, and then he pours olive oil dressing all over it. It comes to the table so rich, a little bit of provolone hanging out the sides. It's so rich you can hardly stand it. But I order one every time I get near his place. Focaccia from Italy. Now, the French bread, let's review that. We've got 2 pounds, 3 ounces of flour blended into exactly 2½ cups of tepid water, 2 cakes of yeast, and we blend 4 cups of the flour first, whip it around like mad until it turns to gluten, 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 gluten. You want goo. Remember that. It's important. Then you add the teaspoon of salt, mix with a teaspoon of water, and then knead in the rest of your flour, and the recipe's complete. You see? Let that rise once on a counter with covered with a bowl. Punch it down. Let it rise a second time. Punch it down again, and then you're ready to start molding. Now, when you mold the loaves and put them on the pan, please understand that you want to use a bit of cornmeal. And I keep my white cornmeal right out here. I put some on the bottom of the bread, and I also put some right on the board. That way I don't have to use a lot of oil, you see. White cornmeal is great. You can use yellow if you prefer. It doesn't matter. Then that goes into a 450-degree oven. After the dough has raised, it goes into a 450-degree oven. And in the bottom of the oven, I've got another bread in there. I have a pan full of hot water. Hot water will keep the oven steaming all of the time. You must remember the hot water. It goes right in the bottom of the oven, full of water, when you start your baking process. And after 25 minutes, check it. And you'll wind up with gorgeous treasures. Remember, the steam and gluten will give you the kind of crust you want. And you want crustiness. You want a bread that's just going to crack when you eat it so that everybody can enjoy themselves. That's how I make bread. And this is for my son Jason, who is my bread freak. When you go to the table next time then and you reach for a loaf of bread, please grab something with some body. Bread is an ancient food product, and it's to support us. It's not a dent on the table, nor is it goo that's supposed to stick in your teeth. It's to have some body. Do that. Use this recipe. You'll enjoy it. I'm glad we could be together today. You are my companion, and I hope someday we can eat together. Until that time, this is the Frugal Gourmet. I bid you peace. Bye-bye.